Hi, I'm Brentan Schellenbach, and this is yoga for the hips and low back. So I put this practice together because recently I've been doing a lot more sitting and lying around with the season change from summer to fall. And so this practice really helps restore proper movement and function to these areas, especially because I think evolutionarily we were supposed to be moving our hips and spines a lot more than we are currently using them. And so I'll do my best throughout this practice to really offer you all of the options that you'll need to make this practice comfortable and enjoyable for you, which you'll see over and over again is kind of the most important thing and the whole reason for being here in the first place. And so in the spirit of that, I have a bunch of props behind me, and you might want some, all, or even like more than these, and we'll also get into that during class as well. But I just brought over a folded blanket, a yoga bolster, which you can substitute at home with a pillow or a thick couch cushion, a yoga block or a block-sized book from your bookshelf, and a strap or belt from your closet. And so when you're ready, we'll get started on all fours in tabletop position. Okay, and this is time to really connect with your breath here. So feel free to take any movement that helps facilitate that for you. And that includes, but is not limited to, cat-cows. That's nice. Hip circles, as deep or as shallow as you want, both directions. And just let the breath deeply enter your whole system on the inhales. Give a little sound to it too, so that you stop thinking about all the things that your mind has been preoccupied with all day. And part of effective opening of the hips and low back is really going to be releasing our mental grips on our lives as well. And then from here, if you set lateral bends, you can stretch and look over. Guide the belly in though during that time so you're not overstressing the low back. And other direction. And then from here, press back to a nice gentle child's pose. Big toes together, knees wide, hips back, heart forward. Maybe your fold isn't as natural feeling to you, and if that's the case, that's okay. Just try to soften where you can. Try to fill up the low back, like the low back is an inner tube. And feel your whole body slow down. Downward facing dog pose. So you can start to open the hamstrings. So nice deep bend into the knees here. You can walk it out, pedal it out, relax through the head and neck. This is the extent of arm work that we'll do today, so don't think that we're going much farther with this. Push the ball mounts of your feet down into the ground, same as the heels, and then gently walk back with a micro bend in your knees. And let's just take a nice forward fold here. The point is to have hamstring release. So you really want to let the knees soften and take all sensation out of the low back. So if the low back feels grippy at all, bend the knees some more until it stops feeling that way. And release the upper back too. Release the head and the neck. Hamstrings are a huge component of these hips of ours. So to think that the hips end at the joint is really limits what the hips actually are. And you just want to be as soft as you can here. So the more forceful that we get with our bodies, the more they resist to that aggressive force. So we really want to become pioneers of looking at how we treat ourselves. And then walk the pose back forward, downward facing dog. Okay, from here, let's move our right foot forward to lunge. Drop the back knee down. And this might be where that folded blanket might come in handy. And then you just want to drop the pelvis all the way down and forward here and rest the front body into your front leg. Give a little back bend to your pose here so that you stay nice and open through the shoulders, but you're targeting the front of your left hip. And then when you're ready, gently pull the pelvis back in space. You can always take your hands up to something like blocks and then move right leg back. And then come forward with your left foot, either from table or dog. So you can just move it through. Soften back knee. Stretch the pelvis down and forward. And then you just start to feel the opening of the right hip flexor. And again, if the floor seems really far down away for you, just put your hands on blocks or something else that lifts the floor up to meet you. And then we'll move the pose back to downward facing dog. So what we've just done there is we've opened up through the hip flexors a little bit. And since we also opened through the hamstrings, ground your heels, bend your knees, and then stretch your sitting bones way up, like you're trying to tilt your pelvis upside down and shake out the spine. Relax completely and breathe. All right, from here we can go ahead and drop on down to the knees. And we'll move from opening the front of the hips to opening up the outer hips, which are very different from person to person. So you may find, I'm gonna try to set my body up the way that's right for me, but please use this time, especially in the privacy of your own home, to really explore different ways of putting yourself into these postures, either using your props or by going to different modifications. So we'll move into our half pigeon stretch for the outer hip muscles. And we can set up for half pigeon pose, or you might also choose to do a figure 4 pose, which is lying on your back and threading the needle. So I'm going to set us up for just our regular half pigeon. And it starts by bringing the right knee forward into the outside if you can. If you can't, that's not. To the outside of the right wrist. And you can just give a point to those right toes and just stretch your left leg back. Now, if you already feel yourself in this version, like this is not cool, come onto your back and wrap into figure 4 with your right foot crossing over your left knee. Now, the point of this pose is to get this part really supported. So unless you're like super amazing, mad external hip opener, and you know that about yourself, you'll probably find a little lift to this setup here. So that's why you want to take a pad of some type. You got to kind of adjust the right height for you, and then take it underneath. I'm gonna need a little bit more. There we go. Okay, you should feel like you can rest your pelvis into it, and then once that's true, come down. Okay. Once you know you're in the correct position, you'll know that because nothing is sticking out to you as something that needs to be dealt with right now. There are sometimes those sensations in the body that are just unmistakably uncomfortable. And instead of pushing through those moments, I'd really suggest us backtracking to before we felt that and moving the pose and just testing other directions that you can move your pose in so that you can start to experience something different on the inside. And the inside experience, I think, is really what opening the hips and low back is ultimately about. And then we can switch our sides. Pull this right leg back and do something with it that makes it feel good. Maybe that's just a few hip circles. Or you're also welcome to circle out through the knee and then set up for the other side. So you want your weight really even, left to right here, like your heart goes straight out of your pelvis. Your back leg goes straight out of its socket of the pelvis. And then you feel like the little bounce. Well, we gotta get the support underneath the bounce, so to speak. And keep playing with it. If it's much more, then it's much more. If it means coming down to figure 4 and threading the left foot over the right knee, then that's what it is. And then come on down. It's also nice to have something to rest your forehead on, so feel free to grab that block that you have and set the forehead down on it. And just even letting all of the skin of the forehead stretch and open out will help create a nice calm internal atmosphere for you. And if you find that the forehead cannot really release, that there's probably a reason why. And so you just want to go into your experience and assess it. Maybe it just means you need a little bit more support underneath you. Maybe it means you change something about the way you're breathing or holding a certain part of your body. When we're ready, we can go ahead and begin to exit out of this pose. Just pitter-patter our way back up. Please take your time here and feel free to let your body move in any way at all. Okay, so we'll now move into our fire log pose, which is a seated hip opener. Same family of stretches as half pigeon, but maybe feels a little bit different to you. So if you're already really limited here, like knees lifted, you'll take a sukhasana, which is one foot in then the other, and you'll keep the butt lifted. So grab something to sit up on. And when we get into the forward fold, I'll explain one other variation from there. If you're ready for fire log, you can go ahead and start left knee, left shin parallel to the front, and the right foot stacking. Now I feel like I'm a good model for this because I have this going on. When I really align second toe, center ankle, and center knee, this is what happens. This is how much my hips are letting me externally rotate. Now, if I let all of this go soft, I can get much deeper in here. But what's letting me get deep is that my ankles are twisting, which doesn't necessarily mean my knees will be twisting, but there's a big possibility that something weird will be happening in here somewhere. And especially since the knees are supposed to go forward, backward, a twist is not the best thing for it. So I suggest if this is manageable. Feels okay for me to be here. Lift up. Now, if as you're lifting up, any person in any modification, including Sukhasana, feels being pulled back behind you, let your spine go back. And then, like a sunbather, open your chest to the ceiling like that. Such a better place for the low back to work. But if you feel like I can just lift out of my pelvis, like no big deal, then you can try to start to come forward. Okay, when you come forward, it'll actually compress this a little bit, but I still don't want this to be totally lifted. So, I found this the other day, especially for the bottom one. Get your bottom one supported, just like you had in your half pigeon. And now, this is so much easier for me to go in here. And just getting my knee lifted a little bit allows that second toe, center ankle, center knee in line. And if you have something to go in this space, even better. And then we can come on up and take the other side. So if you're propped up well, there really should be no teeth gritting, no jaw clenching. And so that's really up to you to look at that stuff and see what's there so that this practice becomes a very healing, nurturing practice. Set up for the other side. If you're in Sukhasana, it's the opposite leg wrapping. I'm just going to place my prop on this side as if it's the same situation. You, of course, may have a different story. Then you can sit up. Now, if you feel that little tug behind you, let yourself be tugged behind you. So when your body is suggesting a direction for you to go in, it's best to just go with that suggestion. If you feel good to come forward, come forward. No, like it's gonna compress a little bit. Still wanna get everything nice and aligned. This is so nice if you feel your pelvis ground. Press your hands down and forward and keep stretching your whole rib cage out of your pelvis. And then we can release. And just untuck yourself. Nice gentle movements as transitions. Our last seated position is going to be a Baddha konasana. So soles of the feet together, knees butterfly open. Again, if you got this thing going on, you can try to get something underneath this to hold it up. You can lean back. Okay, I love this one, like this sunbather one, especially if your low back is pulling. And then you can also, if your pelvis is ready for it, lift up and over and fold. This is where having a block can be really nice, because if you can get your forehead down close enough to it, you can get forehead to the block at any height, and then your whole upper body can totally relax. And if you're in between here, like that's not totally in your satchel today, you can grab your bolster and create like a slanted pillow, let's call it. A slanted pillow. Bring it, all the way in. And then take your forehead down. So we'll be here for about a minute. And during this time, let's really let the breath hold the most of our attention. If our attention could be sliced into little pie pieces, the breath would get, let's say, 85% of our attention. And for something to hold 85% of our attention, it has to be pretty spectacular. Like, it has to be pretty easy to pay attention to it. Otherwise, it would feel like too much effort. And so part of the process of paying more attention to your breath is actually creating a breath that feels really, really great while it's happening. And so you just want to let your breath fade in and out, like you're not controlling where it ends. Draw it in and out of your body very evenly, start to finish. So there's no dramatic swells or increases or decreases in volume. And then we can come on up. We'll move away from the hips into the low back, which should feel more available to us now. So for this pose, we'll take our block down onto our backs, set up for our supported bridge pose. For supported bridge pose, step the feet in close to your body and just breathe here. And this pose already is called constructive rest pose. So it's a very soothing practice for our iliopsoas muscle in the front of our hips. And also very soothing on the hamstrings. You might find that this is where you like to stay. You can also fold the knees in on each other so they're not holding too much work in either one of them. And if you're ready for bridge pose, knees stay over second toes, lift the hips. Take it at any height. You know, yoga block has 3 heights. That's why it's nice to invest in one for $9 or something, because they have so many uses. Okay, so you just want to settle the sacrum onto the bolster. The sacrum's right above the butt crack. It should feel like you can release your 2 frontal hip bones down into your body here. So it's even more constructive for the front of the hips right here. Relax the weight of the feet into the floor. If you have the shoulder mobility, you can roll the arm bones underneath you. You can clasp. Weight the back of the skull so the chin moves away from the chest. Even let the eyes close here. So you teach yourself that our experience is not totally visual. And we're so visually oriented in the rest of our lives. It's sometimes nice to remind ourselves that our experience is totally full, even without the vision. And let the eyes relax. When you do that, you're actually relaxing whatever is behind the eye that is controlling what the eye looks at, because we're not taking in the world as the world evenly around us. We're taking in different snapshots of the world, and we're choosing what to focus on. And so when we can release our focus on the world, we can see the world more fully in reality. That's always a nice thing to practice. To release, ground your feet, lift your hips. Release the block, hips back down. Windshield wipers. As you windshield wiper, heel toe your feet mat width distance apart. And when your knees fall down to one direction, really let them fall there. Join your second toe, center ankle and center knee in alignment. And then stretch your knees down to the floor. And then pick the knees up, go over to the other side. Same thing. If you run into a prop, just kindly move it. And then you can come back to center. From here, we can go ahead and just roll to the side and come back up to a seated position. Or after we fix our hair, we can get set up for our very last pose, our shavasana. For shavasana, we have a very wonderful pose, also an inversion, also on the wall. So pack it up, head it over to a wall with the bolster or your couch cushion or whatever, and your belt that you've made into a big loop. Okay. Once you find the right wall for you, you want to start at the side of the bolster, and you're going to roll up onto the wall with your butt totally against it. So you got to get into a fetal position on the end of your bolster, then roll up, and then kind of even yourself out. Use your hands and feet actually to scooch your body as close as you can to the wall so that both sitting bones are touching it if they can. Relax your upper body. You can relax your arms like this. Some people might like to hold the pose like this, or even just knees into the armpits. But if you're ready for shavasana and to be still, grab your strap, pull it around your legs. Right above the knees, I think, is where people usually like it the most, but play around. Squeeze it in, relax your legs. Totally against it. There we go. They don't have to be straight. They don't have to be flexed. Relax your legs into the strap. You can use your hands. And then eventually release everything. And release your entire body. Release all the muscles around your ribs. This posture is so important for our circulation and inversions in general, which are poses where the feet are higher than the hips and the hips are higher than the heart. it really helps reset our neurological system. But not only that, it elasticizes all of the belly organs. So like all of our habits of pressing down into the earth are now being reversed. And you'll start to feel that when your legs feel like rain sticks here. You can just feel almost like things are draining from your feet down into your legs, into your pelvis. Relax the legs into the strap more. Relax your thigh bones into the head of the pelvic bowl, the curved out space in there. Relax your belly towards your low back. Relax your front ribs towards your back ribs to the floor. Let your shoulders slide out, like from your pelvis to your head. You were a slide at a playground, just really smooth and even. Stay here for as long as you'd like. When the time comes for you to exit this posture, start awakening your body the way that you might if you were a small child waking up from a nap. So there's no sense of anything to do or any place to go. You might start with some wiggling of the fingers and the toes, deeper breaths, maybe relaxing and stretching the face a little bit. And then eventually, just make your way out of the posture, rolling off your bolsters, and you can carry on with your day with a renewed low back and hips. Thanks for joining in for practice. Namaste.